Welcome. This is the post secondary transition conversation. We focus on the ins and outs and everything in between of the transition process for families of students with disabilities. I'm one of the hosts. My name is Meghan Smallwood, and I am a public school transition coordinator. As always, I have a co host.
My name is Patrick Cadigan. I am also a public school transition coordinator. So this week, we are excited to finish out our conversation with Beth Brady from Sunflower Bakery. Beth was so generous with her time, her insights, and explaining to us about how the bakery works. So, without further ado, we'll join that discussion already in progress.
Is there a possibility that, let's say, a student doesn't make it through phase one? Would they repeat it, or is there a conversation about what happens next?
Sure. So when a student comes into our program, so I think I shared with you that I review that IEP, I review that psych assessment. I take all of that information and I put it into a snapshot. All of our instructors are professional culinary chefs. So they've gone to schools like CIA or Johnson and Wales. They are not teachers working in special ed. So my job is to create a snapshot that's bite-sized, right? And digestible for them. So I create that snapshot of how to work with that specific student, very, individualized. And then if a student is struggling, the students then will say flagged. And at that point, the team will have a meeting along with the parent and we'll, just like you would do in an IEP, add some interventions, some strategies to better help that student. And then, so things like a check-in and check-out, sound familiar?
Yeah.
Check-in and check-out, or let's say even a daily chart, progress chart, focusing on a goal. And then we'll meet every few weeks after that. If a student is not successful in the program, it depends. So if a student is having a lot of struggles, whether they be behavioral struggles or they just are not being successful, like I shared before, we're not in the business of disappointing people. And we certainly don't want to set anybody up for disappointment. So have been times where students have not been successful in our program, but we give it that sort of old college try and we do a lot of interventions in the meantime. So there's not a lot of students that do leave our program. That's the sort of long answer to your question. There's not a whole lot of students, but we do interventions, meeting with families, doing a lot of the very sort of mirroring a lot of the stuff that you have with an IEP.
I see where your behavioral background comes in handy then.
Exactly. So I have a couple of check-ins and check-outs that I do, and we do have a couple of students that have daily charts, different from the behavioral charts. Like sometimes it's just a goal, like as far as like specific tasks that they're not being successful at or they're lagging compared to their peers.
Hearing you talking about all of this, how do you help graduates transition into employment?
Great question. So we also have a job placement program. So throughout the program, I told you about those snapshots and those we do have also progress reviews in addition to the snapshot where we have with the family meeting on a monthly basis. And during those times, our job placement team will sit in on those meetings because they want to get to know the student and what the student's areas of strength and any deficits that student may have so they can successfully prepare them for, we have employer partners, but also the students, when they get to job placements, they learn how to fill out an application, how to write a resume. We'll do mock interviews, and then our coaches will take them out and go on with interviews with them as well. And until we find a position for them.
And you mentioned you had employer partners. Where are some of the places that your graduates have gone on to work?
Wegmans has, they have their bakery there. They have lots of culinary spaces within Wegmans. Students have worked at Wegmans. Wegmans is an incredible employee partner. Paris Baguette, Bundt Cake, and then Tate, and smaller restaurants throughout the DC metro area. Lots of employee partners. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that we've had with our work program some students who have shown interest work in the bakery of the grocery stores. And there are some great people out there who see like the skills within them and just work with them alongside closely to give them more and more. And it's great to see the inclusivity on that end.
We're seeing a lot of that now. Hilton came out recently. I think I might have shared it with you when I had met with you, that Hilton came out with a study it was in the fall.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, you shared that with me. That was very interesting.
and what it says is that 60% of people with disabilities that are employed end up working in the hospitality space. In
Mhm.
addition to that, people with learning differences are 3.5 times more likely to stay at a job than their counterparts. So when people had seen this, with particularly in the hospitality industry, and there is a bit of they're scrambling for employers because there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and this is globally happening. They're looking to see better ways to sort of accommodate. This is a huge swath of our population, and this is a group that to make space for them is lucrative and advantageous for the employer. So particularly in the hospitality space. So like I said, places like Hilton and other big companies are expanding to better be more accommodating for our students.
One of the things that I think is so cool is like I had said before, I walked into this discussion and I really didn't have a firm understanding of what sunflower is and what it does. But then on top of that, you also come with an education background. So, wearing those two hats at one time or another, what advice would you give businesses that want to become more inclusive employers?
I think the first step is that sort of gatekeeper space. I think the way in which they recruit is really important. So when I see when I see these advertisements, whether on Indeed or other spaces, excellent communication skills becomes a deterrent automatically, right? So
Mhm.
you're looking at that and thinking, that's not me. So maybe I don't want to say lowering the expectation, but more of simplifying the expectation so it becomes accessible just to the audience that's reading that. It sounds like, oh, this place is going to make space for me. Having that in and of itself, I think would be attractive to people in the learning differences space. But also like simplifying language, being accessible in terms of how they train people with learning differences. I think there's this huge gap from what we do in education, or what I did in education, where we're chunking materials, simplifying language, allowing wait time for processing information, that sort of a thing. And that's, again, that goes to the gatekeeper who are doing the interviews, that you're allowing for that wait time, not simplifying the language, that sort of a thing. And then if and when you hire somebody with a learning difference, that within that space, simple things like color coding some of the equipment is helpful. Maybe just all around, just sort of making space for people. If that makes sense. I'm trying to think more about as far as specifics as it would be color coding materials, simplifying directions, like that the training in and of itself, I think, needs to be simplified as far as that language goes, and allow that processing time. Yeah.
And I think, like, that's something that could work for anybody, right? Like, color coding or simplifying or putting a visual up, like, everyone benefits from that. I
Oh, thank you
mean,
for the visual aids. That's the
yeah,
one. Thank you. Yeah.
I
So
mean,
yeah,
I can
having
use a
those
visual.
visual aids.
Yeah.
Yes. And we all use it, right? So like when we're
Mhm.
driving along the highway, the red stop sign is a red stop sign for a reason. If you look at your stoplights, it's red, green, and yellow. But there's a reason why it's not one, because if people have color blindness. So if it's one, if it's just flashing red and it goes yellow and green, somebody's not
Mhm.
distinguishing between those colors. So you have it stacked on top of each other. Throughout life, we have that. We have signs and we have indications for all of us, and if it accelerates learning for somebody with a learning difference, it accelerates learning for all of us. I
Mhm.
do a training with our staff here because, again, I'm working with culinary professionals to better understand executive functioning and processing, particularly related to working memory. So I do an exercise where I shut the lights down and I read 7 complex words related to things like boating or let's say, automotive, but they're complex, multi-syllable words. And I say, close your eyes, and I give them 7. And I said, and I'll ask, can somebody repeat the 7 words that I just shared with you? 0 hands are raised because the average human being is not retaining 7 complex words that they never heard before. And I flip the lights back on. I take those same words and I apply them to a boat and a car. And I give them 5 words. And then I say, how many of you can tell me with everybody's hands up? And I said, okay, so I just gave you a demonstration of the same information, but I made it accessible for all of you. And the difference is, I'm working with a person with a learning difference, is that you got to have the lights out. And so I preserved your dignity, right? And I didn't put you on the spot. So just imagine the person with a learning difference, giving them multiple words, multiple syllables coming at them with an audience watching them. And you just see heads like your face right now nodding. The same thing happens over and over again when I do this presentation. And the turnaround, and again, I'm working with people that are professional culinary chefs. The turnaround in the way in which we communicate with our students, you see these improvements. And over time, you see the adjustments. So when you talk about making space, there's an example of making space.
That's a great example, and one that I think a lot of businesses would benefit from hearing. And I think, like, the data speaks for itself. Like, you shared how the longevity of their employment is just so much greater than someone who might not have a disability. They wanna work, they're motivated to be there. I mean, we've met many individuals that graduated from our school system that are at the same job 15 years later because they're so proud of what they do. So I think it's just a matter of continuing to break through to the businesses and to show them what they have to offer. So we appreciate all the work you're doing in your organization to do that.
Thank you so much. And absolutely. And there's another fun fact or statistic. 85% of the public want to see people with learning differences and people
Mhm.
with disabilities in the professional spaces. 85%. That's staggering. I was just recently talking to a gentleman who has a nonprofit in London, and he works trying to make it's an alliance for making space for people with disabilities. And he works with big organizations and big corporations. And he shared with me about the people that he worked with, one of the employers. And this is some big hotel in London, and they have a person with Down syndrome that works at the front desk. And when they got feedback, it was that 90% of customer feedback was their favorite person in the hotel was this young man. So
Really.
just to give you perspective, this person is making a difference for the customers. So that's your bottom line. So I think conveying that and communicate that and the awareness of that is going to be paramount because the public
Mhm.
wants it and it's beneficial for both the employer and the employee. So,
Just out of curiosity, what's the most popular item that they make
uh,
at Sunflower Bakery?
sure. So it's the challah bread is one of our sort of premier items, and that is signature items here. Everybody loves that. We have lines coming in on Thursdays for people lining up for the challah bread, and we do a bunch of different flavors, and it's really amazing. We also have tons of gluten-free items, dairy-free. Yeah, so we have dairy-free as well. Are you a gluten-free guy?
My wife is.
So I'm gonna hook you up right now. We have this. I say this because I never really delve into that space before of gluten-free, but then when somebody was talking about this apricot cupcake that we have here, and I was like, "Why not?" And I began, like, cutting it into 4. I thought I'm just gonna have a quarter, and then I'm just gonna put the rest away. I'm not gonna eat that. So I started with a quarter of it, graduated to half, and then the whole thing was just devoured, and I'm like, "That might have been the best cupcake I've ever had." I'm not just because I work here, I am telling you, I would have been lined up for this cupcake. It is phenomenal and super pretty. And then the other item is lemon bars. We do these amazing lemon bars that are phenomenal. Only because I'm prejudiced, all of our items are amazing and the people that make them are amazing. So,
That's the best part about it, yeah.
That's one of my questions also is that, okay, so I understand that you have the customers in terms of the most popular items, but from the participants themselves, what are their, like, do they have particular favorites that stand
It
out to you?
depends. They come out, so they're all lined up. So fun part of my job, because I'm working with students, and particularly I told you, like some students that will need additional supports, and I see success, they'll come into my office and I'll say, I have something special for you. So I get a little bit of inside scoop of what they like. Lots of cookies. They really
Mhm.
like our cookies, the big cookies with sprinkles. They like the chocolate chip cookies. They're big cookie. The students like the cookies.
So we showcased Sunflower Bakery a lot, and I'm sure there's people listening here who are going to ask, how can they support your mission? What can they do to help keep you going?
I love this question. So there's multiple ways to support us. Of course, there is on our website, like just donating to our company. Like you could go online and just there's a barcode there. You can donate money. You can, of course, come in here and just buy our cookies and our pastries and all of our treats. But in addition to that, there's also the volunteer opportunities. So we're opening up for volunteers to come in. We do obviously a security check on anybody that would choose to come on board. But yeah, come on board and volunteer with us. You could help out in the kitchen, whether that's work side by side with some of our pastry chefs and our culinary chefs, or work to help out our students. That would be great.
Oh, that's fun for someone. I'm thinking like a high school student or college student who is interested in the culinary field, and then they get to work alongside these individuals. Like what a great opportunity.
Absolutely. And we do have lots of volunteers coming in, but particularly around the holiday season too, like
Mhm.
packing, they'll come in and help us pack. But working with the students, like a lot of times they'll work with the students because of, again, it's a busy space. So coming in and having that opportunity to interface with people with learning differences is really, it's beneficial to everybody.
This is actually kind of taking a step back a little bit, but I am curious now. You had mentioned you employ professional chefs. How do they find you, or do you find that there is a particular characteristic of the chefs that you ultimately end up hiring?
That's a great question. You have to have the right temperament to work with students with learning differences. Patience, really, really important. So having some understanding or maybe worked with in some time with people with learning differences is helpful. I also, part of my job here is to do trainings. We do trainings on Mondays, about once a month that we're doing trainings where I talk about things like the ABCs of behavior, antecedent behavior and consequence. I'll talk about how to respond to a student that may be struggling. So your help prompt wait strategies.
Mhm.
Or we'll talk about executive functioning, how to work with students with issues with processing or students that may have issues with you know, memory and stuff like that. So, yeah, we do trainings routinely, but definitely we want chefs to come in here that work with our students that are interested in working with our students and motivated. That's
Mhm.
paramount because we are student centered and everything's about our students. So having people that really want to work
Yeah.
in with students with learning differences is really important. Oftentimes, what you'll find at Sunflower is a direct connection to somebody that has had a disability. For complete disclosure, I have a brother who had a car accident when he was in second grade and had a traumatic brain injury, a little bit older. So, that was back in the day where we had self contained classrooms. This is
Mhm.
long before IDEA 2004. And as a byproduct of that, it sort of enabled me to be an advocate and want to do something in this space. And what you'll find at Sunflower is a large percentage of our population that works with our students have some connection to that space. And as a result of that, their level of empathy, their level of compassion, super high.
I'm glad to hear you say that because my background, I am a parent. I have two children, but they are neurotypical. And the people that I have surrounded myself with, and Megan is one of them, she's probably at the forefront of it. One of the things that I've always found interesting is that she's so good at what she does, but she'll be the first to tell you about her sister. She has had that experience. And when we were talking about the Business for All fair, so many of the conversations that I heard people having this was from both Meghan and Aaron, the other transition coordinator who put on the show, that it seemed like that there would be an easier path into employment if someone that they were working with had a background or an understanding of that population. And so it's always been, for me, I've always considered myself to be an outsider. So I always find it fascinating when I watch what you guys do.
Yeah, and we will see that when we go to new businesses to start talking about our work programs. A lot of times the whoever I'm talking to, the manager, the owner will be like, "Oh, well, my cousin has a disability or I grew up next to a neighbor with it." Like there's people everyone has a connection in some way or another. And I think that's a way for them to understand and then grow on that conversation from there. And it has changed like you said, my sister was in self-contained as well when she was in school growing up, but now she does work and has a job for a couple days a week. So it is interesting to see how it's transformed, and I think like we just need to make sure the rest of the world is catching up.
For sure. It's that 6 degrees of separation. Down in the islands on vacation and we're just swimming, and then I end up getting a conversation with a couple from New England, and then of course, the conversation is like, "What do you do?" And so what
Mhm.
I do comes up, and immediately shared with me that they have 2 children they're neurodiverse and fascinated by what I did, and their sons, they're in the transition space. So, yeah, it's we all know it now. I think that particularly when we see the rise in autism spectrum disorder, that there's so many people that it's almost impossible not to be somehow connected in
Yeah.
some way to it. And it's like that saying that when you know better, you have a responsibility to do better. And I think people recognize that more and more that we have to take on these responsibilities as a
Yeah.
society.
Well, Beth, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and talking with us
Well,
about
thank
all
you
of this stuff.
anytime.
Yeah,
And
and
if
I
there's
have
any
you on my list for the fall so we can touch base about Beth was telling me that she had got like pushed into some of the classes in Montgomery to kind of do like a demo of what they do there. So, and I know I've talked to a couple of our transition teachers of students that would be great to do this with. So I definitely would love to talk more about that and then to get our teachers over to see the space.
I host sometimes we'll host teachers during staff development days. So teachers,
Oh, nice.
yeah, so if you guys I do a tour and I'll do
Okay.
a presentation. I know, and we have snacks in the back. We'll take a walk through and do a
Mhm.
presentation. I'll share
Awesome.
Beth's fun facts about what's going on in the hospitality industry.
That's awesome. I love it.
Well, Beth, and then do a quick plug. How can people find Sunflower?
Well, they can find us online. Just go to Sunflower Bakery, and it comes right up. It's actually one of the first places that comes up. And if you put in learning for students with learning differences, that'll also come up.
Well, again, we
Um,
thank you for coming out and talking with us.
yes, this was
Thank you.
great.
I
It'll be
appreciate you
awesome.
guys.
Well,
Yeah, we appreciate you.
yeah, thank you. Our discussions are everywhere: Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music, and others. So hit that follow button and you won't miss out. Please help us spread the word about our discussions by leaving us a review. Links to the information from our conversations are always in our show notes. Surf to our sister website, www.postsecondary-transition.com, full of information and links to more resources. Our YouTube channel contains curated videos that revolve around transition, including playlists for guardianship, alternatives to guardianship, able accounts, and more to come. Thanks so much for your time spent with us, and we look forward to talking again soon.